Are you ruling out a ground campaign in a limited capacity?
I don't want to say that either, but I would say no if I thought it was appropriate. I'd say sometimes you need a ground campaign, but we have other people that will do the ground campaign for us.
The president is not ruling out a ground campaign in Iran, but will he actually do it? He doesn't seem sure himself. As the war continues, the U.S. is struggling to come up with a way out. And as the New York Times notes, the president is used to having countries bend to his will. But now he's struggling to come up with a strategy to extract Iranian concessions as the ceasefire he brokered collapses. Ashley Parker, Rick Stengel still with us. So can the president still win this war, Rick?
You know, by the way, one of the things I always told my journalists is you never ask a principal or a president, can you rule something out? If you said to Trump, can you rule out the fact that the moon isn't made out of green cheese? He says, no, I can't rule that out. No one ever. It's
all right. Note to Trey. Don't ask a question like that.
You know, he's never had a strategy. So in a way, everything he does is reactive. I mean, remember, he's the let's see what happens president. So I would say a victory would be to get back to the agreement that he already signed. And I don't actually understand why Iran doesn't want to just keep to that agreement, because they basically got everything they wanted. So I don't know how he extricates himself from this.
Is the only option, if he wants to force Iran back to the table, to continue striking or to do a ground campaign? I mean, what are the options he has left right now?
I promise you, he's not going to do a ground campaign. He doesn't have.
He's going to rule it out?
I'm ruling it out. What he can do is to continue to try to bomb them, to make them say, ouch, to make them cry uncle, to go back to that earlier agreement. Now, being Donald Trump, he might say, well, I don't agree with the earlier agreement anymore. I want to have more, tighten bonds on you, preventing you to make a nuclear weapon. So I just don't see the end game there. And I do think what he's going to do is sort of kick the can down the road. It'll be like the Gaza agreement, the board of peace in Gaza. Nobody's talking about that anymore, but they're not actually executing on the agreement.
Yeah, but this one has economic ramifications abroad and here at home, and domestic ramifications. Because if the Strait of Hormuz is blocked or disrupted, oil prices go up, all the prices end up going up. So I wonder, does the White House see this as a bind that they're in right now, Ashley?
Yes. I mean, you asked, can Trump win this war with Iran? I mean, in some ways at this point, quote unquote, winning would be if he could just get oil prices here in the United States down before the midterm elections. That was something his team was worried about before we launched the very first strike. And that was before we fully understood what we didn't know then, which is no one, I shouldn't say no one, but they were not talking about this idea that Iran would shut down the Strait of Hormuz. And there was a sense that Iran would crumble, cave in far more easily. There was not the sense of the pain tolerance that it turns out that Iran has. And so, yes, they know it's a problem. They know it's a political problem. It's something President Trump himself talks about and acknowledges, but he has not found a meaningful long-term way to do that.
So what are they planning to do about the November midterms? I mean, the line from the White House, it wasn't believable then, but the line from the White House months ago was that don't worry about it. Oil prices, gas prices would be back down before November. Once this thing got settled, they would fall like a rock. And they did fall a little bit, not like a rock. They fell a little bit. They certainly didn't get to the price of gas before the war started. But that was then, and now we've resumed bombing. In fact, CENTCOM says we're bombing as we speak right now, and oil prices are on the way back up. What's their plan for November?
Well, it helps for President Trump himself that he does not particularly care what happens to Republicans in November. So that lightens his sort of psychic load personally. He would prefer that they win, but we've seen in his actions and talking to people close to him, it's not the animating force. The people around him, of course, care a lot more. There's a sense among Republicans that they will probably lose the House. They do have to their advantage still just a favorable Senate map in terms of what the Democrats have to do to win back the Senate. But this is one of these rare things. And Katie, you and I have watched Trump do this so often. And Rick mentioned it earlier, too. Repeating something long enough to make it seem true. But you cannot do that with something that voters don't experience voting machines every day. They don't know what happened in Fulton County, especially if you don't live there. But everyone knows what it costs to fill up your car in those billboards at gas stations. This was a Biden advisor who said it to me, but it applies here now. He said every single one of those is a billboard essentially advertising against our administration and against our policies.
Rick, last word?
I think that's right. I think he is nervous about the midterms. I think one of the things, though, in his favor is how mercurial the oil markets have been. Remember, before the war, everyone said oil would go to $140, $150 a barrel. It still never really breaches 100. It's so reactive to him, and he manipulates it. And I think he has more going for him than we suspect.
You think he's purposefully manipulating
100%.
All right, Rick Stengel, there's an answer. Ashley Parker, thank you very much. Coming up next.